it, stay sweat.
Is it safe to be up here?
Not according to that know-it-all fire marshal, but there was
Adult Swim.
Duck season. Rabbit season. Duck season. Rabbit season. Duck season.
The Looney Tunes. Cartoon Network classics. DC Comics. Dune. The Matrix. Clockwork Orange. Goodfellas. Mad Max. Blade Runner. The many impressive works of HBO. These are not just things that I like. They happen to be things that I love. We cannot choose the ones we love. WarnerBros is a weird company with a lot of history. It's one of the big original 5 film studios making some of the most important to the medium, even if you have to excuse the blackface.
The most racist shit ever.
This is going to be an annoying video to make. Just to start off, I'm going to be using WarnerBros as a blanket term here for things that aren't or haven't always technically been the same company. There have been so many mergers and acquisitions over this century-old studio's existence that it's honestly pretty mind-numbing. This video is not about untangling the rat king that is corporate media. I want to talk about what that tower and that logo on the side of it represents now. WarnerBros is impossible to ignore as a media commentator. It's not as easy to write off as something like Ubisoft or Sony Pictures. You might think they never appeal to you, but if you look into it, you'll probably find that they did fund something you liked in the recent past. Abbott Elementary, Barbie, Sinners. But that doesn't really matter, does it? You see, the dream is collapsing over there at WarnerBros. See, I can list off cultural touchstones like that all day. I can remind you how Yakko taught you the names of every country. I can play a clip from every Film Bro movie of the last 40 years. I can, I don't know. Here's Batman doing something cool. And none of it matters because WarnerBros has what they call a PR problem, which is the corporate way of saying that people hate them. They're not annoyed by them, but too nostalgic to stay mad long enough to not go to Disneyland, or think they're great when they're not making bad decisions. It's hate. That's their reputation. Someone's gonna say I'm being too nice. I want to talk about why WB inspires all this hate, because it may not be as simple as some of you think. Love and hate are often said to be two sides of the same coin. I love that idea. It's totally true. Apathy is vastly more common than hate, and I suspect hate gives a person the same kind of satisfaction love does, a perverse reflection of the same emotion. You can love them one minute, hate them the next, and both are equally deserved. It's this duality between love and hate that I find interesting enough to even bother making a hate video in the first place.
Give it back! This isn't right, that was ours!
So what's the cause of this wild shifting of emotions? It all comes down to WB being incredibly inconsistent as a company. To illustrate this, I'd like to ask you a question. Do you remember Michigan J. Frog? I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't, even though he was the mascot for the company's channel for around a decade from the mid-90s to around the mid-2000s. Not Bugs, not Porky, this frog. And that is weird, because he only had a couple of appearances in the Merry Melodies shorts in the first place. He's not even a top 10 most popular Looney Tune. But in retrospect, it's pretty ironic. Telling, even. MJ Frog's gimmick is that he's a very talented vaudeville-style singer and dancer. But anytime you try to show someone else, he stops and makes you look like an asshole. That is WarnerBros.
Fuck that frog.
It's like, come on, guys. I swear this frog can sing. Just give him a minute. Watch. No? No, you're just gonna sit there? What's that? Oh, you want to delete more shows off Max instead? Okay. Well, then allow me to retort.
know how you's done it, but I know you's done it!
Well, they are traditionally known as a movie studio, so we might as well start there.
It's showtime.
And you know, as a movie studio, I don't actually think Warner Brothers is all that bad.
You out of your fucking mind?
They have made some of the greatest movies of all time, in both the past and pretty recently. Sinners might end up being my favorite movie of the year. I really like both Dune movies, even if it took the second one for me to finally understand what the first one was trying to do. I really like Mad Max, both the originals and Fury Road, and while I didn't think the Furiosa sequel was quite as good, it's not a terrible movie. The Matrix might just be the greatest action movie of all time, and when they explained it to people, nobody even understood what it was. I also like the sequels. Mostly. No. They are also responsible for popularizing the superhero genre on film. You don't get Sam Raimi's Spider-Man without Richard Donner's Superman or Tim Burton's Batman. DC on film is its own complicated story that honestly just needs its own section, but it's funny that you can see this duality even just in those early films. Both the Superman and Batman franchises started amazing and drove themselves into the ground. Look, it might seem like there's a lot of duds in there, but they make a lot of movies. It's part of taking risks. Naturally, some of them are not gonna pay off. So yeah, they've made bad movies, and you know what? They will make more. But what am I supposed to say? Just, hey, major film studio, just make good movies that I personally like. There you go, that'll fix everything. That'd be pretty presumptuous and stupid. They made the Minecraft movie. Is that bad? I don't know. I didn't see it. It seems like the people who did liked it enough, ironically at least. I saw Barbie. It wasn't really my thing, but I respect what it was trying to do with the aesthetics and the characterization. But Lightspace. Warner Brothers can't be a good film studio. They made Space Jam 2. Bruh. Space Jam 2 isn't supposed to be a good movie?
Who does this guy think he is? Huh?
Warner Brothers' biggest problem as a studio isn't in the films that they make, it's in preservation and distribution. TCM, or Turner Classic Movies, is one of the best collections of films that you can easily find. But accessing that collection of films is where you might have a problem, because TCM has been under threat, both the cable channel and on the internet, and we'll get to that. But maybe you don't care about old movies. Well, you're in luck, because they also might just delete your current project too. They turned Batgirl into Schrodinger's movie. It might be the greatest movie of all time. It might be the worst. Who knows? But they created this massive negative PR spectacle by deleting it in front of the whole world, leaving everyone to endlessly speculate. Along with animated movies like Coyote vs. Acme and probably a whole lot of others we don't even know about. Part of that is just the nature of the business. Films get canceled all the time, but to basically finish a movie just to delete it forever is a bad look, at the very least. I can summarize this pretty easily by just saying, stop deleting the good movies that you made and let people watch them. But you know what, that's nothing. We got plenty more to go through. I'm just getting started. Warner Brothers TV is something of a mixed bag, but there is a lot of good in there. Penguin was definitely my favorite show of last year.
Look, everything you heard about me is true. Yeah.
I have always respected the output of HBO. Do I really have to sit here and explain why HBO is good? Here's a clip of Deadwood.
Pain or damage don't end the world, or despair, or fucking beatings. The world ends when you're dead. Until then, stand it like a man and give some back.
Here's The Sopranos. The Wire exists. Remember Spawn?
Knock, knock.
True Detective Season 1 is actually one of the biggest influences on me as an artist. I maintained that Westworld was a good show all the way through. It started as a great show, and it slowly turned into a pretty good, weird sci-fi story. Of course, I gotta talk about Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. And since this is an Adult Swim channel, and always will be, I gotta say, Adult Swim has been putting out some of the best shows of its entire existence within the last couple of years. Newer shows like Smiling Friends have proven themselves to be very popular and having the staying power to maintain that popularity. Common Side Effects is, within one season, up there with some of the greatest of all time. Yeah, I can confidently say that, yeah, it's up there with the Boondocks, Venture Brothers, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Moral Oral, Fat Guy Stuck in Internet. Adult Swim, like all things, has had its ups and downs. I'm sure I'm gonna have a lot of anime fans coming at me saying, Adult Swim is terrible. Look, guys, that was 1 year, and it's not nearly enough to completely destroy their legacy in that sphere of entertainment. While I do have pretty positive opinions towards Adult Swim in their current era, I can absolutely not say the same thing about Cartoon Network. I grew up with Cartoon Network. Of the big three of that era, Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and them, they were always my 100% standout favorite. I honestly think their output from the original cartoons up to at least the CN Real era is the best collection of cartoons that has ever been created. And they don't care. They've spent the last few years marginalizing the channel into practical non-existence, overloading the schedule with the same damn shows over and over for days on end. I'm sure some of this can be blamed on the waning relevance of television across the board, but Cartoon Network is one of the shiniest jewels in their crown, and it's just a bad look to see them handle it poorly. I honestly do think they can turn Cartoon Network around, greenlighting new original projects, and hell, even bring back some of your older shows under the right circumstances, especially if those creators want to come back to complete them. But I'm just really looking to see some improvement in that area. This is something I didn't know until I started making this. Apparently they spun the block on Sesame Street and just went down there and told Big Bird and the gang to run their pockets. How the hell do you think you can run a respectable media company when you're taking one of the most beloved cultural artifacts and saying, you know what, we're gonna have to make some cuts around here, Elmo, I'm sorry, but you're out. My life as a 600-pound polyamorous wedding cake designer, you're in. Haha, what a hilarious joke. I tried looking into the Discovery side of WarnerBros Discovery, and I've never been into reality television in the first place, so I'm not exactly the guy to ask, but I will say that without exaggeration, looking into some of these shows was truly like staring into the abyss, and if I do it for too long, I'm certain that it will stare back at me. Why? Why would you make this? Why would you go on this show? Why is the healthcare system so bad? Why would you do this to me? It probably sounds like I'm exaggerating for the sake of comedy, but for real though, who would make this? Who would fund this? This is an exercise in human cruelty. Yeah, so we got some real issues here. I really liked House of the Dragon. It was a nice return to the more political side of Game of Thrones after, and they still somehow managed to cut the budget of one of their most popular current shows. The same company that made Jellystone, a really cute and charming show, also made Velma. And yeah, in case you were wondering, since the last time I talked about it, it gets the death penalty. Paul American exists. And I could have gone my entire life without knowing that, but here we are. You know what? I'm trying to see two sides of this. I gotta bring back some positivity. I'll talk about DC Comics. You know what? That'll be fun. Yeah, that'll be a lot more positive. Yeah, let's talk about DC Comics real quick. TV may be a fucked up hellscape of wasted opportunity and canceled projects, but now I'd like to talk about DC Comics. Oh wait, no, I make that joke, but in all honesty, I really don't have any problem with DC Comics right now. In fact, I think they're doing better right now than they have since at least Rebirth, which was like, what, almost 10 years ago? Something like that? Part of the problem with talking about corporate media is that there's a potentially never-ending list of grievances a person can have with them. I can't personally account for every time they've screwed over a writer or canceled a run or ruined a movie. I'm here to talk about today. And today, I gotta say, I really like what DC Comics is putting out. Mark Waid's Justice League Unlimited is a lot of fun. The DC animated universe is usually the gold standard that everything else gets compared to, so it makes a lot of sense to use it as a point of inspiration, and it feels earned rather than just like a nostalgic throwback, especially if you want new readers. And I think Dan Mora might just be my favorite Justice League artist ever. Ram V's New Gods is just as grand and operatic as the Fourth World characters deserve. Green Arrow's been good for a while now. Nightwing is better than it's been in years. Say what you want about Tom King, he's never boring. Wonder Woman isn't my favorite or least favorite thing he's ever written, but I'm glad that a lot of people like it, and I can easily say that this is the best Wonder Woman comics have been in a very long time. And that brings me to my next point, because the Absolute line hasn't disappointed me once. Absolute Wonder Woman is exactly what I want out of a Wonder Woman comic. Absolute Batman, Superman, Martian Manhunter, Flash, Green Lantern. I've been following them all, and I'm very interested to see where all of them are going. I'm genuinely interested in seeing what even more Absolute characters would look like. I want to see Absolute Green Arrow, Absolute Blue Beetle, Absolute Zatanna, Constantine, or Swamp Thing. It's a good place to start if you've never read any of this before. I think the reason it works is that it's weird and different enough without feeling totally unrecognizable, and for the sake of argument, I'll also throw in the idea that if this was the main current universe, people would absolutely hate it. But they took it in the right direction. Start something new without taking away anything people already liked. I've been watching a lot of Scott Snyder interviews since this whole thing started, and he just seems really passionate about what him and his team is doing. It also helps that when it comes to DC Comics, I never really have to worry about writers making decisions only for the sake of movie synergy. DC Comics doesn't really do that. They just seem to take the comics in whatever direction they feel like, and then the movies are just kinda over there doing whatever they're gonna do. And unfortunately, that takes me to a less positive subject. DC on film has been a joke for years. I need you to give me the stone. What are we, some kind of Suicide Squad? Why did you say that name? Anything Ezra Miller has ever done? No! It's an L factory over there. But I think it's easy to forget that the DCEU stupid name was never, like, consistently terrible, and that's part of what makes it so frustrating. Wonder Woman 1 was good. Aquaman 1 was good, if the ultimate dumb guy movie. Blue Beetle was good. The Suicide Squad was good. I'll even say that taking it on its own, Man of Steel is not actually a bad movie. If they had left it in its own continuity and just started with The Flash or something, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. It's that Superman has to lead by example, and that's what most of the audience wants to see. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that WarnerBros have made the best superhero movies. Most of them are about Batman, but hey, he is Batman. And even the fact that they've made some of the worst of all time can't take away from that. A lot of the time, it isn't even just the fact that they made a couple of bad movies. It's that some of their decisions will be so bafflingly weird. For instance, I really like the Suicide Squad. I've actually always thought it was a really cool, loose concept that allows you to throw in a lot of interesting characters. But I'll never understand the obsession. There are more Suicide Squad movies, TV shows, and video games than there are for Superman or Wonder Woman. Where did they get the idea that these characters had the staying power to sustain multiple animated movies, one of which is great and probably the only one we really needed? An entire anime that I thought was like fine, but who is this for? James Gunn's take on the characters is good enough to cancel out how bad the first one was, but if Man of Steel is the original sin, then Suicide Squad is Cain and Abel unstable. But hey, look, don't worry. If you are one of those people who hates the Squad without any reservations, I can confidently tell you that it is 150% dead. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League isn't the last straw. It's a bullet to the head. It's hard to form adequate words to describe how unbelievably embarrassing this game is. It's like an act of self-sabotage. If I wanted to destroy Warner Bros., I don't think I could come up with something better than... Hold on. Wait a minute, we have to talk about Warner Brothers games, but not yet. And really, what's the rush? Over-promoting the Suicide Squad isn't actually the most embarrassing thing Warner Brothers has ever done, it's just the most recent. I don't know, you fuck up a heist movie about somebody who wears a cat costume, but they found a way. And I'm not actually sure Catwoman will ever outlive the reputation of that movie. But the biggest disappointment of DC on film for me is and will always be this.
Ah, green! Wow. I know, right?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
It can never be worse than this, because at that time, I actually believed in them. This was just a little bit after I had started getting into reading comics on a regular basis. I think the first event I ever read might have been Blackest Night. I had no context for it, I loved it. Green Lantern was my favorite superhero for a while there, and collectively they're all still pretty high up there on my list. And then this happened. That's how I like to talk about it. Green Lantern is a thing that happened to me. This movie seems single-mindedly devoted to being as dull and pointless as possible. Oh yeah, and it looks like shit. And the worst part of it isn't a few bad movies here and there. It's that they have so much sway over the way these characters are perceived. It can be kind of hard being a DC fan. You often find yourself having to justify it to people somehow. My personal theory is that DC characters have always been under far more of an expectation to be perfect because of how ubiquitous and popular their characters are. You can see this in how the Batman and Penguin were perceived before they came out, and in the upcoming Superman movie, which I think is doing everything right in terms of feeling like a comic book, but people aren't going to give it any credit until the day it comes out. I don't need DC to be perfect. The Arrowverse, for instance, has its issues. I actually never liked Arrow, but it also has Superman and Lois. We have Beware the Batman and Batman the Brave and the Bold. I can take the good with the bad. I just don't want the quality of every single one of these projects to be a coin flip between triumph and tragedy. On that note, let's talk a little bit more about the history of Warner Brothers animation. I don't think there's a better representation of what a classic cartoon is than the Looney Tunes.
We're on!
Even at its best, I always felt like Disney was too rigid, fixed in time, and overly manicured. By contrast, these characters are bold, unapologetic, and overflowing with a never-ending youthful energy. There's a long-running debate about who cartoons are even supposed to be for, and I think the Looney Tunes have always managed to avoid being a part of that. We know who they're for. The young and the old, suitable for every era in the form of anything from dumb memes to swap meet t-shirts. These characters aren't just liked, they're respected.
Boy, listen to that! They love me!
In the 90s, they get reinterpreted as tenured professors of the Cartoon University, and that's a perfect metaphor for their importance in real life. There wasn't really a rule book on animated comedy when guys like Chuck Jones, Tex Avery, Mel Blanc, and Fritz Freeling created these characters. They had to write it.
What we really look for in order to bring somebody to life is to find out not what's right about them, but what's slightly off about them, what's different about them. You know, like Jack Benny used to say, that 3 fingers are funny and 4 fingers aren't.
You can teach animation and comedy by watching these cartoons. Sitting comfortably in third place for most iconic cartoons of all time is Hanna-Barbera, who always got a lot of criticism for smaller TV budgets and not being as well animated as their theatrical counterparts, but that never really mattered because their strength was always in their characters. They have so many characters, many of which are just as loved today as they ever have been. Animation does not look the same without these cartoons, and that's not my opinion. That is a USDA certified fact. And that brings me to Cartoon Network, which I see as the direct successor to all of that history. You can see that classical DNA in their music, timing, expression, and design. Young artists were able to take that youthful energy and make it new again. And Kids WB was pretty good too. My point is, Warner Bros. Has no idea what to do with the greatest cartoons of all time.
Philistines.
I understand the complications of adapting to a media landscape where both television and physical media are both slowly making their way out the door. But given all their potential, no company has handled it worse. They've done more damage to the cartoon community than Judge Doom. It's gotten to the point where other companies have had to save their movies from them. I really wish I had gotten to see The Day the Earth Blew Up in theaters. It wasn't really playing anywhere near me, and I just didn't have the time. I hope Coyote vs. Acme can at least be seen as a bigger deal because of all this negativity. But is this what the Looney Tunes have been reduced to? Is it really such a worthless brand to these people? That clearly cannot be the case, because it's not like the Looney Tunes actually went anywhere in animation. They're still making Looney Tunes cartoons. The Looney Tunes show did a lot of heavy lifting for keeping these characters relevant for my generation. So I know people care. There's nothing stopping these characters other than bad distribution. The television side of things is just as bad. Now, I'll admit that I haven't been personally concerned with the state of Cartoon Network since, like, Adventure Time came out. I watched that show a little bit, but I never finished it. Same thing goes for Regular Show and Gumball. I actually did finish Steven Universe, like, out of spite mostly. But that was because I still respected what they were doing, and of course, there's good shows in there that I really like. But these days, you really just have to wonder, are they hoping people will stop caring so that they don't have to keep paying animators? You know, I don't think any two shows represent the shift in focus for this network than the original Teen Titans and Go. Now, I know it's very cool to say that Teen Titans Go is not that bad and leave it alone, it's just for kids. And maybe it's not that bad, but it's definitely not high effort by comparison. The problem isn't making this type of goofy cartoon, it's trying to make that what you do exclusively. There was definitely a moment where it seemed like that was the only thing they wanted to make. Most of that is forgivable. I don't care that they made that Thundercats one, or the Ben 10 one, or We Baby Bears. It's none of my business. The one that I can't forgive is Powerpuff Girls 2016. I mean, what do I even have to say? This was just embarrassing for everybody involved. And the funny thing is, with this and Go, we actually do have other better short versions of these cartoons to compare them to. These are supposed to be cheaper with a more limited audience. There's just no way around it. But what actually pisses me off is that even when they do bring back one of their shows that people really like, they still somehow find a way to fuck that up. This Gumball shit just happened as I'm recording this video. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, if they had put this on Cartoon Network, or that other thing, that would have been a very easy layup. But no, they literally give it to their competitor instead. DC animated projects are pretty all over the place in terms of quality, but at least I can say that recently, between Creature Commandos and My Adventures with Superman, it's not too bad. And they have announced a bunch of new projects, I'm sure of which many will be good. There was that Ben 10 DVD box set shit, I don't even know what the fuck that's about. What are you people doing? Are you okay? Animation is just so undervalued, man, and nobody gets it worse than the people who create them. I've been following what seems to be the end of this Learning with Pibby situation. It's just really depressing. You know, I made my fair share of jokes about how Pibby would never become a real show, because it just seemed really unwieldy and expensive as a concept, and I guess I was right, but the thing that never made any sense to me was why they didn't just make more shorts. Adult Swim does tons of shorts for all kinds of reasons. And I'm starting to wonder, was it maybe not because it hit a little too close to home in concept? The idea of this evil, unknowable force slowly destroying all of these characters? Maybe the thing destroying Pibby's world wasn't some fictional monster. Maybe it was just reality setting in.
All right, let's get this picture started. No! Listen, pal, let's discuss this thing sanely, huh? Look, I tell you what, you go your way, and I'll go mine.
My friends insisted that I talk about Rooster Teeth, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really have an opinion. I never really cared about Rooster Teeth. If anything, I'm just confused, like, why buy this in the first place? As far as I can tell, Rooster Teeth had its own problems to begin with. I'm not really sure how much you can blame WB for it. It's just weird. Why buy them and then not do anything with them outside of the worst crossovers in the history of DC Comics? In a roundabout way, that brings me to my next topic. And you know, I've had a lot of fun here talking about contrasts and dualities, positives, negatives. I want to make this as clear as possible. There is nothing positive about Warner Brothers games. Warner Brothers games is the back alley dumpster of the gaming industry. So everybody's talked about how great the Arkham games are. It's one thing to create a good game, but to make one that shifts the way other games in the industry are made around it, that's pretty impressive. Rocksteady raised the bar for licensed games across the board. Unfortunately, even when Warner Brothers games did something right, they still did it wrong. They split the content between so many different retailers and pre-order bonuses that as far as I'm aware, you can't even access it all today. They were able to take good games and make them slightly worse, like Shadows of War. Both those games, pretty good, but they just couldn't help themselves but put microtransactions in the sequel. They also drove fear into the ground. Then of course they killed the company. Monolith is no longer with us. How are we gonna get a sequel to Shogo now? I haven't been that into Mortal Kombat since like 9, but I still follow it because I like the world, and the guest characters are always cool, and they were doing pretty well for a while there, you know, until recently. Mortal Kombat 1. Yeah, the new one is named 1. I don't know, it's stupid. What's the problem? Well, of course, you know. Monetization. I've heard people complain about the balancing or whatever, and I don't know, that's just fighting game shit, that's always gonna happen. And that's the fixable side of things. Sure, a game can deal with being a little unbalanced for a while. What it can't deal with is people not wanting to engage with the way it's being sold. I'd love to say I could get back into it, or that I'd be excited for a third Injustice, but the corporate structure the way it is it gonna ruin anything NetherRealm tries to make? Thinking about how Multiverses went down pisses me off. I maintain that that game really could have succeeded with proper management. They get a ton of characters people really love, all they had to do was make the right choices. And of course they didn't. It took them forever to put characters you would expect to be there basically day one, like the Powerpuff Girls or Samurai Jack. But of course they prioritized movie synergy and monetization. And that's what really killed that game. Monetization. A lot of games have come around to the idea that if you're trying to sell your free-to-play game, the least you could do is give people the characters for free. And of course, they were never smart enough to do that. I'd love to talk about how Multiverses could have done better, but what's the point? It's already dead. I'm just glad some members of the community have taken it upon themselves to make sure that the game doesn't die completely. You know, I really wish I didn't have to say this, but there's just no other way to put it. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is the most high-profile failure in modern gaming history. You know, I wanted to like this game. I'm probably the only person on the planet who likes the Suicide Squad and Borderlands 2, the only type of person this game could possibly have been made for, and they still managed to fail me. When someone wants to complain about the current state of the games industry, this is the first one that they will reference. It's come to represent every single thing people hate about gaming today. That's almost impressive. And you know, when it was coming out, I was actually like, you know what, maybe it'll be good. I was defending it a little bit, because people love hating, and you know, maybe it'll be alright. They really couldn't have picked a worse direction to go in for the story, and it's a perfect example of why you don't take 9 years to make a game. The entire culture can shift in the time it takes you to finish it. By the time this came out, no one was looking to kill the Justice League, and they definitely weren't looking for any more Suicide Squad. Aside from that, people were pretty sick of live service games by that point. And you know, there are nice things I could say about the game. Metropolis is a pretty cool map. It really shouldn't be in this game, but it's beside the point. The movement is pretty good for what it is, and I don't care that it's a shooter. You want to give Captain Boomerang a gun? Yeah, sure, whatever. The problem is that the guns aren't even good in this looter shooter. Everything feels the same. They had so much opportunity with weird superhero and villain themed guns, but the last straw for me was the cancellation of the Wonder Woman game. It would have been so easy to just make a God of War, Shadows of Mordor-like, put Wonder Woman in it, give it a few good skins, and a decent story. They even had Gail Simone on the writing team. I was actually pretty hopeful about it, but instead of just following through on what could have been a pretty good game, they decide to cancel it. How am I supposed to be hyped about anything this company makes when they can't follow through on anything they announce? And Wonder Woman comics have been doing really well, so it would have been the perfect time to announce something for that side of the fan base. But they would rather put out another DC mobile game no one's gonna play.
One more thing, Eugene, give me that. If I ever find one of these lying around again, I swear to fucking God, I will stop being so polite. Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.
Man, they really gotta get rid of the guy running their games division. Oh, they actually did. Maybe that represents a positive change, I don't know. But right now, there really isn't anything to look forward to from WB Games. Now look, everything I've said in this video up to now, it's just been a bit of fun, really. I treat companies the same way I would like a bear or something. They're big, stupid, dangerous animals that need to consume everything around them just to survive, and yet have an amazing PR team, I guess, because people still want to believe that they're cute and friendly for some reason. So I'm not going to be surprised when they kill someone. I expect very little of them at the end of the day. As an aside, the only major entertainment company I still respect is probably Capcom. We'll see how long that lasts. So any rage in this video up to now is mostly an act. I've never crashed out in a video before. I wanted to try it on. So when I tell you that everything I'm about to say is completely genuine, I want you to understand exactly what I mean by that. This is from the heart. Max is the least reliable streaming service in existence, and it is run by dipshit assholes. I've been using Max for years. I have to. It's basically a business expense, and I'm sure you can tell by now that accidentally or not, I'm exactly the kind of person it was made for. And when it first came out, it was a really good service. It had great collections of Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, HBO, a lot of great movies. Sure, they made some weird decisions putting theatrical movies on the service the same day they came out, but it was COVID time. It was weird. Nobody knew what was going on. It's forgivable. At least back then they were trying to add value. Ever since, they've been on a single-minded campaign to dare you to cancel your subscription on a monthly basis. I'm at the point where if I wanted to say, I don't know, watch Animaniacs on a whim, you know, that show where the characters famously come out of their own logo, I would have to assume it was on a completely different platform. I wouldn't even think about Max. Their reputation gets worse every single time someone tries to find something on there they know they made. You know, I wonder how much Disney is paying them to fuck their brand raw. Okay, get this. There's this WarnerBros documentary that's made to celebrate their 100-year history or whatever. And there's movies in it that they talk about that aren't even on the platform.
Max should change its name to Min.
What?
Max should change its name to Min?
You know, I wanted to go watch Space Jam 2 just so I could make a couple of jokes about it. And without even thinking about it, I go on there, and it's not even there. They don't even have it. They don't, as of recording this right now, they don't have Space Jam 1 or 2 on their platform. You can't even watch Space Jam 2. Do you people think I pay you $20 a month to not watch Space Jam 2?
Pete, send this clown to the reject.
The reject? Oh my god, Warner Brothers. You're outwardly calling your greatest property your rejects, and that's exactly what you've done in the last 30 years.
Yeah. Okay, so when I asked people what they thought the worst things about Warner Brothers were, I got a ton of messages about this show called This Flag Means Death. I have barely ever even heard of this show. I've never seen it. I don't know what it is. But so many people were talking to me about it that I simply have to assume that you really fucked up. So even though I've never heard of this show and don't really care about it, I'm just gonna go ahead and be mad about it on the behalf of a bunch of random people. Fuck you. The list of shows they've deleted is so big I can't even really keep track of them all. But here's just a few things I care about. Infinity Train, Westworld, Metalocalypse, Raised by Wolves, Snowpiercer, the TV show, Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Static Shock, OKKO, the whole classic Looney Tunes library. Hey, you wanna watch the Looney Tunes show? Better go to fucking Tubi! These guys have elevated disappointment to an art form. Has there ever been a company so dedicated to taking L's? I didn't have any problem finding things to talk about in this video. I had a problem deciding what to cut. I really don't know how long this is gonna end up being, because every single time I would think I was done writing, they would come back with some new shit. Is it really too much to ask for you guys to be normal for 5 minutes? Oh, apparently so. You know you're an entertainment company, right? You don't sell gasoline or health insurance. You don't get to get away with being hated by everybody, but so important, nobody can do anything about it. You're supposed to be fucking professionals. Why does it feel like the inmates are running the asylum? The Venture Brothers is on Netflix. How do you live with yourselves? And why do I even care? You know, the story of the Warner Brothers, the real ones, is itself a story of love and hate. When Jack, Harry, Albert, and Sam started the company, the idea was that they were going to be in it together or not at all. They had their differences, but it was about taking care of each other.
You are the oldest of my sons. As long as you stand together, you will be strong.
As time went on, they split apart. Old Jack Warner was a cutthroat businessman back when that still meant something. The classic, smooth-talking Hollywood producer. And by most accounts, including my own, a complete scumbag. Him and Harry were especially known to fight. Opposite personalities. They were obviously successful together for many years, but towards the end, Jack set up a deal to sell the company, convinced them to agree, and cut them out behind their backs to run it himself. A real betrayal. That's Warner Brothers, a corporate battleground. And ever since, it's been passed around between more partners than your ex-girlfriend. It's an ephemeral corporate entity, consistent only in the things that it owns. There's no point in being mad at what? Some buildings and a logo? And it's not my job to solve the problems of the guys who are running it in this specific moment. Martin Scorsese called the old WB the working class studio, because it wanted to create movies that would relate to normal people in uncertain times. And he said it, not me, so you know it's true. And I'd say in a lot of ways, they have been really good at doing that. This video isn't meant to insult anyone who happens to work there. One thing to always keep in mind when talking about art is that people are not the companies they work for. Most people don't really like the companies they work for. But the people, that might be a different story. Most of them are just doing the best they can under the circumstances. I don't care about Warner Brothers. I care about the artists they've employed. Some of you have probably noticed that I haven't even mentioned David Zaslav in this entire video, because I don't care, and he doesn't matter. He's a corporate raider. The second he feels he's extracted as much value as he possibly can, he's gonna be gone. And that might not be too far in the future. Maybe he does actually care. Doesn't seem like it, but at the end of the day, that's not really his job, is it? One thing I've picked up on scrolling social media, comment sections, and talking to actual people is that people who care about WB enough to have a specific opinion on them are basically nerds. Which is to say that they care. They care about film, TV, animation, and the ones who create it. People with passion, and the first to tell you when your product isn't functioning properly.
What is this crap? Where's Batman?
So do I love Warner Brothers, or do I hate it? Well, if I had to, I would say that I love it. when it's working. Companies can feel like these all-important monolithic entities, but it's the people who give them their look, their character, their voice. And that's who I want to talk about. People like Dwayne McDuffie, Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Andrea Morano, Gendy Tartakovsky, Craig McCracken, Maxwell Adams, Matt Milaro, Dave Willis, Andy Merle, Aaron Magruder, Carl Jones, Brendan Small, Greg Wiseman, Scott Schneider, Denny O'Neil, Tim Burton, Stanley Kubrick, Tex Avery, Chuck Jones, Fritz Freeling. I gotta talk about Doc Hammer and Jackson Public at some point, and Dan Harmon, and Justin Roiland, he's a part of the story too. And there's all these new people too, Justin Montgomery, Adele Williams. Now, I would like to say that this video is by no means a definitive account of everything wrong with Warner Brothers. I honestly just gave up trying to do that. What, do you think I'm gonna talk about their legal troubles? Get the fuck out of here. What am I, Moon Channel? So let me know what pisses you off the most about WB in the comments section below. And now there will be a video on my channel people can go to specifically to complain about all the Adult Swim shows that got canceled, as there should be. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.
Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah, please.
Okay, just go with me for a minute. What if there were a medicine that could heal, like, almost anything?
Well, yeah, that would be great, sure.
Yeah, right? But what if they didn't want you to know about it?
They? Sorry, who's they?